What the hell? Why is this the Zoom? One moment, people. What the fuck? God damn it, YouTube. Alright, one moment. Done. Oh, it's just my preview. Fucking. God damn it, YouTube. Can you do one thing without fucking it up? Apparently not. Apparently not. Apparently YouTube just can't do anything fucking right. Alright, one moment, people. Let me check if this stream is actually doing its thing. Okay. So it's just the back end that's being fucking stupid because, you know, when you have a fucking multi-billion-dollar company, oh yeah, you're gonna bitch that, oh, YouTube doesn't make money. I'm like, yeah, I fucking wonder why. Right? It's like you can't even do some basic shit. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I'm kind of a little annoyed. Probably a little from overworking because I guess that's the thing everybody's doing. This week is overworking, and that's why no one has time for Rider, which is totally fine, man. Like, this week's kicking everybody's ass, and like, fucking I'm busy, all the podcast people are busy, like, fucking everybody I know who's working is busy. It's like, it's just a terrible week. What the hell, man? Anyway, who cares? Sorry about the terrible start we're on. Yeah, it's only me here today because, as I said, everybody's just way too fucking tired from work to be here, which it's fine. Honestly, let them take care of their health. It's more important than Ryder. Like, they can always say their piece whenever they come back. But episode 20 of Saber. Yeah, so another good episode, actually, surprisingly enough. I'm guessing it's the same, actually. Episode 20. Oh, now they don't want to fucking say who worked on it. One moment. Okay, whatever. I'll look at that in a second, but this is a good episode. Let me see who worked on this. Episode 20, yes. Fukura Takaro and Ishida Hidinori also did the last episode. So again, they're doing this episode, and props to them. Pretty good episode, like writing wise, pretty damn solid. I mean, acting's a little problematic, but you know, it's Kenzan. he always has some problems. Like, he's a young actor. I can't blame him too much, but like you can tell he's the weakest link in the cast. But other than that, like everything else was really solid. As for directing is great. Honestly, like I love the action sequences. I mean, they're not like as crazy amazing as like Sakamoto or something, but who cares? Otherwise, like it's a really solid. I love that moment when like Saber Henshin's after getting knocked down about like his speech of like, oh, Yuri's like, oh, you're hurt again, and it's like, yeah, that's what I do. I get hurt, but it helps me connect with the victim because if I feel pain, it makes me want to protect people even more. And then he gets up and he does that like Henshin slash, and that was freaking great. Like all the fights in this episode actually are really good. Honestly, it's one of the first times, like, normally a show is like Rider versus Rider, but like, fucking hell, like, I haven't seen this much just straight, just like, oh, it's on now. Like, everybody has their own side, and there's like a huge, crazy mess of dynamics going on in this fight, but it is. So it's pretty much like, it's a 3-on-1, but it's like all three of the other parties like hate each other. But they all just hate Saber even more, and they're all fighting, and then they weirdly, like, one of the enemies ends up being on, like, Saber's side for a second, and then they're like, fuck that, I don't like you, and I don't like these guys. So then they're helping the other guys because they're all attacking Saber, and then somebody else ends up siding with Saber for a second, and then they switch sides. Like, oh man, the dynamics in that fight are so good. Like, it's super interesting, honestly. That was like, I mean, there's probably moments like this in other shows, but like, fuck, that like just brought me back to Ryuki. But even Ryuki, I don't think was like this, where it's like, this is just like 4 entire perspectives in one fight. Normally it's like, okay, yeah, you can get up to 4 riders, but there's like team ups, right? It's pretty rare that like all the sides are fighting, but like, oh, plus the monster is there too. So yeah, that fight was insane. Anyway, looping back, yeah. So like, I guess I'll just say the moments about the fights. Like, yeah, really good fights this episode. Like, the action's great. It's shot actually pretty well too. Fuck, it's actually really good. Like, just watch it, man. Like, honestly, this one of those episodes, I'm like, just watch it for the fights, even though there's like the rest of it's really solid too. Like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I can't really gush too much about it, but it's like, it's solid. Like, they did a great job directing this. Well, for the fight, I mean, the character moments. Well, I guess that's more of like the preview. I don't know, like anything with the Southern Guardian, it's a little iffy, and like anything with Kanzan, because it's so like with the Southern Guardian, it's so like like, how could you be this naive that like you believe everything she says, and then Kenzan is just like, he kind of is, his acting's a little stiff, right? But like the emotions are there, and like everything they're doing kind of makes sense. It's just it's so blatant with her and like Kenzan acting. It kind of stands out, but you know, like, what are you gonna do? It's like a big ass cast. You can't have everything perfect, but otherwise it was solid. Yeah, but I guess like looping back, because there's a lot of shit that happened in this episode. So basically what happens is you have the monster fight, and like honestly that's pretty much inconsequential. Like even like Yuri's like, whatever man, like I don't care what happens. Like you were never a threat pretty much. Like the monster just gets dealt with by Yuri. So you have the thing where like the villains are figuring out like, oh, there's infighting going on, right? So there's that subplot. There's the Yuri exploring the new world type of thing, right? And then like Tomame and Yuri set up, and then you have like the stuff with the swordsman and the southern base. So those are like the three major storylines, and I guess we can go with the swordsman one first. Well, I guess we can go with the villains one first because it's pretty simple. Where it's like, yeah, the villains are like, holy shit, there's like infighting, and then they're like, well, maybe one of them will end up like maybe someone has the same idea as us to get power. Or maybe they're like, well, maybe we can get more people on our side, right? So like it's very basic, but like, hey, at least they're getting something. And that was a small little scene, but it was done well enough. And then they show up in the fight and they all have personality, where it's like, you know, yes, whatever his name is, but you know who I'm talking about, like shows up and he's clearly got his own thing going on. It's like, fuck off, I don't have to follow your orders, I'm free now. I'm just gonna fucking rule this world, pretty much, right? And then the other villains are kind of just doing their own like standard thing of trying to still get power and whatnot. And the monster of the week's there, where it's like the kid doesn't want to fight, he keeps running away, but like the monster keeps taking over him. So that's all pretty standard stuff, but it's actually done really well this episode. Well, I mean, not really well, but it's done fairly solid. So again, that didn't drag the storyline. As for the southern base shenanigans, I love how like Buster and Slash are like, yeah, I don't think Toma's like doing anything bad, because it's like everything he says sort of checks out. And then so they're like continuing to doubt what's going on, which is good. You know, they're like the level-headed characters. Then you have Rentaro, who's kind of wants to trust Toma, but he's got his prejudices, because like he doesn't want to believe something that, like, the organization that raised him can have, like, is evil, right? Like, he refuses to believe that, which again is like a genuine struggle, so it makes sense. And then you have like Kenzan, who's just like off the fucking rails, right? Because he's like, my friend's dead, these assholes killed him, right? The guy who we thought was gonna be like helping us is betraying us. So like he's just spiraling out of control. Right, like as like later on in the fight, like one of the villains are like, hey, maybe you're pretty much like, you could join our side, you're doing a good job. And it's like, fuck off, I don't want to have anything to do with any of you, right? And I was like, that's actually a great moment, because it like Kenzan is an important part, because one, he's a strong fighter, but two, it's like he's so emotional, like he's getting jerked around by the Southern Guardian, and like the villains can see that, like, yeah, if we had to pick one of the new guys to turn, it's gonna be this guy, right? Like over time, like they're starting to see who they can turn. So a lot of interesting dynamics going on. Southern Guardian, okay, see, this is my problem with her, is like she's a little too direct, where it's like she's manipulating them, but like the manipulation is just like, oh, okay, my manipulation failed, let me try another one right off the bat. It's like no chill, lady with no chill. I mean, like, she's like hyper chill all the time she's on screen, right? But it's like no time wasted. It's like, oh, that failed, here's another bullshit line. It's like, holy fuck, lady. Right, like I was gonna say, like, have some shame or regret or whatever, but I'm like, as we've seen, like, human beings in the year 2020 has shown us that it's like, yeah, like, whenever we say, like, oh, that villain is in a show or something, is like, oh, that's too cartoonishly evil, people aren't like that. It's like, nah, the real world, they're much worse. And so it's like, well, I mean, that's annoying that she's so, like, upfront and trying to manipulate them, but it's like, I mean, I guess I could see it happening in the real world, sad as it is. But it's like, as like a writer, I'm like, ooh, I would have liked a little more subtlety, you know, like the, like it's one of those weird things when you're like, ah, yes, Kenzaki Shiro did it better. Where his thing is like, hey, do this thing, get your wish, fight for me. But like he really did. Like he's actually pretty good at turning people. Whereas like the Sudden Guardian just says whatever bullshit you want to hear to get her thing, and like it wouldn't be as bad if you like said it to different people in like secret, but like she says it to like people like right in the open. It's like, oh, said this thing to the whole group, said this thing to the whole group again. It's like, shouldn't somebody call out her bullshit? So it's like, yeah, like that's one of my only problems with her, because like she then has that scene on the rooftop on Kenzan, which makes sense that like she can tip him over the edge, but it also shows that like Kenzan didn't really need convincing. Like he was kind of like already kind of going down a dark path. Like he's carrying like all this weight on his shoulders. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so like I just wish like those two characters' writings would be a little bit better, but other than that, like they're not terrible. They're fine. It's just, you know, personally I would have preferred a little smoother writing, but it's fine. It's not too bad. But back to the most important shit of this show, which is, holy shit, the trio is good and getting better. And the trio is like oh yeah, Toma, Mae, and Yuri. Apparently they're like the stars of the show now. I mean, I guess they're supposed to be, but like, no, the show pretty much is just the Toma, Mae, and Yuri show now, and it's fucking great. Right? It's like, it's literally everything we were complaining about. It's like, just do the Ryuki thing. Like, just small moments of character. Like, honestly, I was not expecting Yuri to be the best part of this goddamn show, but Yuri's kind of the best part of the show, or at least he's saving the show, which is weird, but fuck it, I don't care. Like, he has one gimmick. He's not used to the modern world, so you just see him doing random shit and interacting with the modern world. And, like, May just, like, running around dealing with this shit. It's like, oh, they're fucking great. Also, I'm like, oh, I kind of felt bad for May. She's like, oh, God, I'm fucking dead for sure this time. when like, the attack hits, I'm like, and then she gets, like, comedically flung away. I'm like, oh, that's funny. I mean, well, that's a little harsh, but like, you're doing a comedic thing. I'm like, oh, okay, she'll probably be like fine. But then like later on, you see her and she's like got a cast and everything. I'm like, holy fuck, consequences. And then they still play it off for laughs. I'm like, I don't know about that. That's not the best. But they do kind of fix that by the end, where it's like, oh, Sword of Light has like a lot of magical techniques that he can do. Like, he can heal people, he can wipe memories. Like, it's super convenient. But like, again, if they weren't healed up this episode, I'd have a bigger problem with this. But like, clearly they're planning for the Sword of Light to heal them, so like I could kind of let it pass a little bit. But like, yeah, it's not great. Also, like, Toma's even more busted up at the end. Man, if Yuri didn't have healing powers, we'd be fucked. But what are you gonna do, right? Deus Ex Machina. Again, Yuri's and May's scenes are great. Their dynamics great. Yuri just like continuing to become more of a character as he keeps reading the comic and keeps like exploring the world. So he's like seeing how the world's changed and he's trying to adapt, which is cool. And I guess that's gonna lead up to his new well, he said like, finally time for me to get serious or train or get stronger. I think he said get stronger, so that's gonna lead into the next episode. Toma also gets stronger because he does that technique that Slash did with that reflection technique that Yuri noticed, and I guess Toma noticed too, and so he's learning, he's getting better, which is interesting. Also, the Sword of Light said that like, it's basically like Rentaro shows up and is like, hey, come work with us, you know, are you after powers? Like, and Toma's like, no, and then Yuri's like, yeah, but it's Toma's destiny to be drawn to power, and then that kind of like undercuts it. But that was kind of a bittersweet moment where it's like, you see almost like Toma and Rentaro almost get together and kind of have like a plan where it's like, oh, they'll work together. No, because they agree, but then like Toma goes off and it's like, yeah, let's go beat the enemy inside the organization, and Rentaro will not hear any of it, which makes sense for both of their characters, and explains their falling out. It's a little sad, but like, you know, it's understandable why it didn't work. Also, it's great that like Toma then at the end of the episode tells May, okay, it's kind of annoying that he told May to go get the books, but you know, I guess like he couldn't go anywhere, but like May was also busted up, but whatever, it's fine. At least it gives May something to do next episode. But Toma basically is gonna try to help the swordsman out by doing more research and seeing what this is all about. Or like, instead of like, he's trying to help them, but like he can't help them directly. They keep having problems, so he's gonna try to aid them in other ways, which is gonna be cool. Like, that's smart, especially considering what happened this episode where they almost joined forces, but they still have problems. So it's good that Toma realized that and is trying to help out other ways. Yeah. Again, like I said, Yuri's great because he keeps doing his random moments and like exploring and evolving. The villains are adapting and like they're not static because even they're not a unified force, so that's interesting. Sun Guardian is starting to freaking make her moves, but like everybody's starting to suspect her, or at least Slash and Buster, which is good. So like, again, really fucking solid episode because almost pretty much everything everyone did made sense in this episode, which, you know, that's pretty rare. And also it sets up like, it leads pretty well from the last episode, sets up the next episode pretty well. So again, like suddenly this show's goddamn solid, which is rare. Does that mean I wanted to watch it every week? I don't know about that. It still kind of feels like a chore, to be honest. But, you know, it's not bad, so that's good. I feel like this is one of those things where it's like if you were watching it in a marathon, it would feel better now because like, oh, just skip through all the shit in the beginning, which wasn't great, to get to here where the show actually starts getting good. Or like starts actually being the show it wanted to be, you know. It's kind of annoying that like they did that thing, like since Drive they've done it where it's like they've split up the main show and all the important shit happens in like side videos and shit, and especially after Ghost, because this is what fucked over Ghost, is like they kept pulling the writers off the damn show to do side projects, and guess what, apparently like a lot of important shit happens in like the side content, right? Like not in the main show, because that's what Drago was saying, is like the Kenzan and Espada thing is better explained in a side thing. I'm like, oh, that's fucking great. Not really, it's kind of terrible. And the Buster and Slash thing where it's like you actually see Slash's full personality, and it's like, oh, come on, show. Like, would I watch that? I don't know, maybe. But like honestly, like fuck that. I'm really not a fan of that shit. It's like, put it in the goddamn show, right? There's no reason it shouldn't be in the show. It's super fucking annoying. You can say, well, it makes it better, but I'm like, why? Why do we have to fucking go watch all this other shit? We didn't have to do this, right? It's like, Toei, just for more money, you're fucking doing this, and it's killing your show. It's specifically killing your show, right? There's no excuse. Especially because, like, this is what killed Ghost, and you're doing it again. You said, like, this time you would let them do their damn show and not interfere, and you're doing it again. And it's like, fuck that. That is not okay. You know what? Like, it's cool that you're uploading, like, rider content to the Tokusatsu World channel now, where all the older tokusatsus are, or at least like the first 1 or 2 episodes of, well, like the original and Ryuki and Amazon. So I'm guessing more writers will come because it's the 50th anniversary. But still, like, you're doing one good thing, but that doesn't mean like I'm gonna let your other bullshit slide of like, this is literally what killed a bunch of older shows, specifically Drive. Like, it got real bad in Drive, especially this year. It's like, what the fuck? Like, what is your excuse? Like, okay, unless you're putting like a lot of civilians and shit, which is unlikely, that like, oh, we had to hold off filming this because we needed people, so we needed the COVID restrictions to be lifted. Like, maybe, but I doubt that, because like, especially when you're trying to film small shit, like, put it in the show. I don't know. I mean, like, the show's kind of packed as it is, but like, if you're gonna put like important character shit on the side pieces, like, don't expect me to be like, oh yeah, this show's great because I know this thing from another. Like, fuck off. I'm not gonna do that. Like, honestly, I'm not gonna rate this show higher because you did something good in the side thing, right? Like, yeah, I know you did it in 0, 1, 2. We just got super lucky that like that episode with Naki's backstory got translated at the same time when Naki got revealed. Like, if that didn't happen, that would have felt trash, right? So I'm like, yeah, I can see how it can help with the show, but I'm like, it shouldn't have to happen like that, right? Like, you shouldn't be pulling out. Anyway, I'm enough with this damn lecture. You get my point. Anyway, good episode. Show's finally catching its stride. Well, that's not true. It's solid. I mean, next episode looks to be decent, so it should be fine, right? So we've had like 4 episodes in a row which are decent, and again, like, this show finally feels like what it should be, and it feels like we're gonna deal with the Sophia thing too, so we'll see what's going on there next episode. But anyway, thanks everyone for joining me, and sorry about the late start, and sorry about no one else being here. It's just work and life shit gets in the way of podcasting. Like, I'm not gonna blame the podcast crew for not being here. Like, they're fucking busy, alright? And also sorry for like the technical nonsense at the beginning of the stream. I think I'll probably put like a timestamp so you can skip to the beginning of me talking instead of dealing with that shit. But anyway, thanks everyone for joining me. Catch you all next week. I don't think there's any reason why there shouldn't be a new Sentai and Rider next week. So yeah, catch you all next week. Later.